Good morning or afternoon if you're tuning in from the east side of the Atlantic Ocean. Or if you're tuning in from the other side of the Pacific Ocean, I have no idea what time it is there, but you should probably be asleep. Hi, all. So here we are, day 4 of the New Year live stream. And this is when we're just going to start diving in. Just a second. I think I have everything set up. Okay, so I did do a few things between sessions, as I often do. You can see here in the little notes. It's probably a little small to read, but that's okay. I'm gonna go through them. I did fix the comment meta information. I broke that right at the end of yesterday's stream. For those of you who were tuned in, you'll remember that. That was interesting. Yes, this thing is on. At least I can see that comment. So, right. So I fixed the meta information. I had somehow messed up what I was doing with my template. But I got that fixed after. It's not exactly the way I want it at the moment, but it's a lot closer structurally to where I want it to be. Oh, and a thing that I'm going to do today actually is I'm going to do this in private browsing with tracking protection, because over here I'm logged in this window, in the non-private window. I'm logged into MyWeb, so I get these little pencil marks for, hey, you can edit this thing, but nobody but me ever sees those. So I'm actually going to do this in private browsing mode so that it pretends that I'm not logged in and like that. Okay, so there are some of the some of the comments. I'm going to go back to a previous post. This one is the one that I wanted to do because this one it's got some style in it, and I tweaked this little label here a bit yesterday and last night, so it's not quite as in your face as it was, and the background as well. I sort of detuned all of that. And okay, so the reason that I'm in here is that this has like a ping back and then some regular comments, and I'm going to need to style all of those. I also styled block quotes. I think that's a thing that I didn't point out on the... Right, so here's how I'm doing block quotes now. I hadn't styled these at all yesterday. I had intended to get to them and didn't. So this is actually an after generated content. So anytime... Oh, I should open up the style sheet, shouldn't I? Anytime that I have a block quote that has a site attribute, bump this up a bit. There we go. Here we go. Block quote, font style italic. I made the text a tiny bit larger than the rest because I want block quotes to stand out just a touch. And then the after the content is parenthesis, the value of the site attribute, and then close parenthesis. And then I made it a block display, smaller font size, normal so that it's not italicized, and half opacity. I have mostly stopped. I've mostly stopped coloring stuff that I want to fade out. I'm usually literally just fading it out, because that way this will match up with any changes I might make. Like if later I want to lighten all of this text up, I don't have to go back and worry about this being, this suddenly the same color as the rest of the text. It's just lighter. But that shows, where this came from. Without JavaScript anyway, I can't in a pure CSS way that I know of turn this into a link. That would be kind of cool. And I might eventually progressively enhance this with a little bit of JavaScript so that rather than just doing the CSS thing, this becomes a link. But that would require so far as I know, would require JavaScript to do. Phil, I didn't even see your message before you retracted it. Anyway, I messed around with the styles of the indenting of the paragraphs again to account for stuff. So it had sort of become weird, and now I'm doing this part. Bring that up. So this is actually, it's this part. Any paragraph that follows a paragraph, and then paragraphs that follow these things, which again, these 3 lines are a case of me paying for my sloppy markup in the past. I figure anytime it comes after a table, and I do occasionally put in data tables, and then any paragraph that comes after a figure that doesn't have a class. So if I just threw a figure in here, but I didn't class it, then text indent 2M. I did also style figure captions. I centered them, was the change I made between, so that it looks like this, which I think is better. I threw a white space pre-wrap on the CSS, well, on all pre-elements basically, so white space pre-wrap, which was important because, as you can see here, these lines are actually wrapping, and without that pre-wrap, this line, the second line in particular, was just going off out of the box, which wasn't, I mean, it's not tragic, but we have white space pre-wrap, so why would we not use it? And I also threw in some generic header styling up here at the top of the style sheet. I wanted to just have them be, which is generic styles that I could then overrule, which is why now the MyWeb.com is further away from, quite a bit further away from the top of the page, because it has this generic font size and then top margin of 1.5 times 2.5 M, which in this case would be same as 2.5 rem. So I'll end up fixing that. But those are basically the things that I did. And since I was dealing with comments yesterday, I'm going to basically jump into them right now. Oops. I hit the wrong key combo. There we go. Yeah, it's console anyway. Okay. So, inspect element. So I have, let's see, I have ordered list. So this is an ordered list in the comments div. And then every list item has its own ID, but I don't really have to worry about that. So these are all responses. It's throwing in alt classes. I need to get rid of that. Because I can use nth child at this point. But somewhere in my WordPress template, it's doing this so that every other comment gets an alt, so that I can, zebra stripe it, or zebra stripe if you're joining me from the UK. And then Kahuna is, that was the class I picked, 13 years ago to apply to any comment from me, like the big Kahuna, the big cheese, whatever. I could probably change that to admin or something. But yeah, so the first thing is that pingbacks really do need to look different. This is all part of thoughts. Oh, here we go. Comments OLLI. Right, so this comments OLLI is creating these little separators using a linear gradient background that's sized. So I could do comments OL. And what was this? li.pingback, and I believe there's also trackback. Oh, which, rather than .pingback comma blah 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 .trackback, I could do class star equals back, because that would catch both pingback and trackback. Yeah, but you know what? I better not, because what if I at some point what if I do eventually manage to get threaded comments and I, in a fit of making private jokes to myself, decide to class all the replies as back talk or something. So I really back, comma. I'll just copy that and change ping to track. And then these are really, I mean, it's going to be font style, italic, opacity, probably 0.5. Let's see, and then, yeah, that's enough for me, at least at this point. I might at some point take it further than that, you know, either gray them out or make them more, make them smaller or something. But okay, so that'll do. And then let's see. Yeah, that's a link. I'm probably going to get rid of these numbers, so I could just up here, style none. So those can go away. And then, honestly, at this point, what I need to do is I need to deal with the comment and Adrian, you know, wrote in to say or received from. Open this one too. So there's all meta CDR, CAA comment. I wonder what the heck CDR and CAI stand for. I'm sure I knew when I made them. Comment AI? Comment DR. Man, I have no idea what I was thinking when I wrote those classes more than a decade ago. So, at any rate, those will go down there, and let me bring this up a bit. Yeah, and I'm still humming either the Muppet Show theme or the Super Mario theme. I don't know which. That's the Muppet Show theme. Maybe that's the Mario theme. Okay. Let's see here. And I was going to fold all these into a single line where it said something like, on Sunday, July 23rd, 2017 at something 5:52 p.m. Adrian Roselli wrote in to say, but I don't know. I mean, it's email-ish. But timestamps tend not to be on comments. I mean, the only reason that I really have the timestamps here is to show like how much time might have elapsed between one comment and another. But most people honestly don't care that much, I guess. Nah, I still want to keep them. So actually, for some reason I feel like putting them side by side. So that rather than burying the name of the person who wrote in a long string, like in the middle, at the end of a long string, even because not everyone's name, as you can see here, not everyone's name gets hyperlinked because not everyone supplies a URL. I don't require that people give me a URL. I require that they give me an email address. Just so that if there's a problem with a comment or something, I can write to them and say, hey, something went wrong, or hey, the way that you phrase that, I'm not going to publish that, but if you'd like to rewrite it, I'd be happy to publish a rewrite or whatever. It doesn't happen often, but I do occasionally get people who attack other people personally as opposed to debate the things that they put up. And so I have to say, hey, I got your comment, but I'm not publishing it because reasons X, Y, and Z. If you'd like to try again, I'm happy to let that through. And also it's a useful spam break to have a requirement for an email address. Anyway, or maybe semi-useful. All right, yeah, I'm gonna put these side by side, but I want this to come first visually. Okay. Comments. I can just say ul.meta. As usual, I'm going to prototype this with display grid, not display gird. Grid. Template columns. I'll just go with 1FR, 1FR and see what happens. And then, what were these called? CDR and C. Okay. Comments.umeta.cdr grid column 2. I'm actually interested to see what happens. Yeah. So this is a thing that happens with grid. And I still haven't quite worked out the rules, and I don't know for sure that the rules will stay as they are. But So I set up a grid, and I said it has 2 columns, each of which is 1FR, which is, in this situation, the same as saying just 50%, 50%, but it's a lot easier if I want to add a 3rd column at some point to just type another 1FR, or start doing repeat, 4, 1FR, whatever. I wanted a straight split here, though, at least for the moment. And then I said grid column 2, right? So the first thing gets put in the 2nd column, but that doesn't, in this situation, that doesn't allow the first thing to go into this first row. This one's being autoflowed because I haven't given it a grid column. And so it gets autoflowed into a new row, which I didn't even specify. It just gets, so I wonder if I do grid auto, I believe it's grid auto flow. No, row dense. Let me see if that changes anything. Doink! It totally does. There you go. So I did a dense grid packing, and so it's putting this in the 2nd column explicitly, but it's putting this in the 1st column because I said dense packing. So without the dense packing, without the dense flow, basically it says, okay, I put a thing here, and I need to start searching forward from here. So I'll search forward here, and there's no row, so I'll automatically generate a new row that has the same 2 columns as usual, and then this thing that I need to put in the grid, I will put here in the first cell that's available. So it's basically a 1-pass. But dense is sort of a multi-pass algorithm. I mean, I'm not trying to claim that I know how these algorithms work, but basically for each item, the grid layout will go through, find all of the things that are explicitly placed in some way, place them where they go, and then for each item go back and fill in where it can. So it's doing that. I need to do the usual thing. Margin 0, padding 0, with style none, and then that ought to, yeah. Okay, so, I mean, I need to change the formatting of this anyway. But the 1FR, 1FR really does mean that these will be split in half. So really what I probably want to do is auto, because I want them next to each other regardless of, yeah. So in this case, it's not exactly a 50-50, but it's going to get close to 50-50. but the rows will, or the columns, excuse me, will basically be auto balanced based on the content, and that's what's happening throughout the rest of these. So, you know, ooh, that's interesting. Why did that happen? Oh, because I'm not right aligning those. Duh. CDR grid column 2, text align right, and those should then all line up on the right side. And that'll even push this over. I mean, I'm getting rid of the time offset anyway, so we don't have to worry that much about that. Yeah, so these mostly seem to line up, except for this one because this is so long. So if somebody has like a really long name that they put in, that'll push over, and these two things might wrap. But yeah, while I'm here, I kind of like how this works for this. So I think I'm going to make this a little more, because this italicizing in this particular font makes the text a little more compact, I think. Let's find out. Font style. Italic. A little bit, not hugely so. Opacity. Do my 0.5 thing again. And, oh, I probably don't want to do it there, but I'll deal with that later. I'm going to fade those back even more. No, that's too much. I'll leave it at 0.5. Right, so then what I think I'm going to boldface the first one. I don't know, again, I don't know why it's CAI, but it is what it is, at least for right now. Font weight, bold. Yeah, I think a little more separation around these separators, a little more white space, I guess, around these separators. But I think this is about what I want for comments, like for the actual comments, because they've got their permalinks, and they have the hyperlinks. Yeah, I think I want to close this up and open this more. So I think bringing these down closer to this bit. Which probably means, let me find a different list item. List item div class equals text. Yeah, so the paragraph, top paragraph margin is sticking out of, excuse me, it's collapsing with all the other margins around it. So I could do, this dot text p margin top 0. Oops, that might be too little, but did I get it wrong? Oh, yeah, not ul.meta. Comments dot text p. Bloop. Okay, a little too close, but the idea is there. Yeah, that's too much. But I can change that to half an M, so the inter-paragraph spacing is the usual full M, but there it's half an M. Yeah. Yep, I think that's what I'm doing with that. And I did 1M0. Let me try 2M0. I think that's probably too much. Yeah, it actually is too much. But 1M0, 2M? No, I want it the other way around. 2M0, 1M0. So I want more space up here. Yeah, I'm digging that. That works. Oh, and that's another thing I did. The trackback URL and comments RSS feed links used to be up here. And yesterday I moved them down to go with the leave a comment bit. And I should probably do the same kind of thing where I take these and I put them over to the side. And this should probably also be next to name, email, URI. I don't think I'm going to do that at this moment because there's a couple other things. So this, I feel like this is in the wrong place. The navigate to a different, navigate somewhere else, like to the one of the adjacent. It's basically go to one of the adjacent articles. But I don't really want it here. I want to go from here straight into the comments. I could have that down here above the footer. And I'm probably going to do that same sort of thing. I'm going to do this same information possibly up here in a side. If I have a sidebar, it's going to go here as well. And I could put it at the top, but I really want this down kind of above the footer. So I'm going to get rid of it. Well, I'm going to move it. Actually, yeah, let me do that. Because when I was looking at this, this feels cluttered. I don't like how this is working. Just sort of that whole area was a thing that I was muttering to myself about yesterday as I was fixing things. So it is something I want to deal with. And comments.php, I believe. Yes, here it is. Oh, actually, wait, no, I don't need to deal with comments yet. I actually need this other thing. I don't think it's this one. Oh, no, it is. Take that out. Put that there. Yeah. Yep. And see, now that that's done, this doesn't need to be here because this is here. 8 responses so far. 8 responses. Yes, you just said that. So that's why I need comments open. That needs to go away, that H3 as far as I'm concerned. The only reason that I would keep this here would be if there were, well, I mean, imagine if there are no comments, right? No responses so far. Comments are closed. I mean, but I could just do that up here. Eventually I could say, comments are closed for this post. If there's a post, and I think I do have a couple of posts where I close comments for various reasons. So this actually can go away. I don't need it at all. And we've got this, and oh, I never turned off the. Yet another margin 0, padding 0. See, people, this is why I wrote a reset. And why am I not using it? Yeah, see, there we go. Why am I not using a reset? And I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, why I'm not using it. And I may end up adding it in the end. Okay, see, so now I feel like this is in the wrong place. I feel like it should actually be above this meta information. 8 responses so far, then flows right into the responses. And maybe I should open this up slightly, but I actually want this not at the end of the entry. I want it at the beginning of that meta information. So I'm going to put this here. And rather than center bottom, it's going to be center top. Is it going to make it smaller? No, it's not. Okay. Yeah, if I change this if I change the separation, this is going to be more what I want. I just need to change how these things are done. me inspect that element. UL meta. All right, so instead of just a top margin, I want to split that between, at least split that between margin and padding. 1M00. Okay, yeah, not far enough. And that's too much as well. Let's go with 3M. Yeah, dealing with sibling paragraph margins by setting margin top 0 on all paragraphs, which I almost did. But here, sometimes my comments have multiple paragraphs and I don't want them all slammed together. I just want this one reduced. And there were a lot of ways I could have done that. I could have made them 0 on the top and 1M on the bottom and then used a margin on the ul.meta here. I mean, that's certainly a thing I could have done. I did it differently. It's always an interesting question of how are you, which actual margins and padding do you want to set where in order to push things apart from each other? That's closer. I think this is still too much. Let me take that down a little and bring that up a bit. I have done the 0 margin on the top of paragraphs. Part of the reason that I'm resisting doing that right now is that in the rest of the site that's not the blog, the bunches and bunches of content that I have, that might slam paragraphs too close to their preceding headings. And I can do an H1 plus P, H2 plus P, H3 plus P. I just don't want to do that right now. I want to try to deal with this a different way. So if I do that, yeah, that's too far. I think the 1M is good. I think that works. This might need to be a little smaller, and maybe instead of being 80%, maybe I make it. I could echo these separations, but I don't think I want them to be that small. I like it to be a little wider. I'm at 80. I'm going to go with just 70%. That might be what I did for comments. Yeah, that just brings that in a bit. And I think these need to be a little further apart. I would just feel better that way. LI margin top. I don't know, half an M. Nope, too much. These are the things you discover. Yeah, even at that. Even that might be too much. I'll go with 1/8 of an M. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, no, you know what? Now that I've done this, I don't like it. I suppose I could use 1 px, but that's just not usually how I, well, let me do it. It's not usually how I roll, but fine. I'll do it that way. Okay. So actually, having moved this, I just realized that's going to change what the homepage looks like. Let's find out if it's terrible. Actually, no, I think this works better here as well. There just needs to be more space here. That's all. Yeah, there's not enough space there. Oh, right. That's a different version of the homepage. Yeah, there's not enough space in the archive. I mean, I don't think anyone would be confused. So when I say not enough, let me put that sort of in air quotes, because I think it's more than enough for anyone to really understand, almost anyone to understand what's going on there. But I just like to open it up more. And just have to think about this. What did I have for my entries originally? So they have 3M on the top, and then there's 3M, 2M, which really means that this is 3M because the... Oh, wait, no, sorry. Oh, there's just the 2M bottom margin. Oh. And then whatever margin the title has, but that collapses with that margin. Yeah, so I actually want this to be like 5M, maybe? No, this is an old version of the... that's better separation, I think. Okay, yeah, so that separation is better. I like that. And then if I click through, it's probably going to be, yeah, there's like 6 furlongs between these two things. So where are my comments? Here's my comments. They don't have a top margin at all. I could pull it back. There's really nothing wrong with doing that. How about if I do -2M00? Yeah, I mean, or I could pull it even further than that, really. I mean, I could oops, I could kill that whole distance by doing a -5M top margin. And it's not like I'm positioning these things or anything. They're not. I don't see any reason why they would ever overlap. There's no comments on the home page. At least there are no comment blocks. It'll say things like 3 responses so far. And okay, so this is too much space, I feel like. And there's actually a thing that I noticed. So I fixed yesterday. I had this thing where when you hovered over this, the Pilcrow that shows up to say, "Hey, this is a permalink," would like the whole first line would jump a pixel. And I actually that changed when I changed font families. But I realized that when I copied over the CSS for this, inspect element, I'm going to get there eventually, inspect element. Okay, when I copied over the grid styling for this guy, these side columns have a minimum of 1M. Because of I just copied it straight from an example I'd done, but I think I actually want it to be 0M. And you might ask, why would you min-max 0 to 1FR, 0 to 1FR? Let me find that CSS. Find. I don't have too many min-maxes at the moment. Wait a minute. Oops. Don't select, don't grab. Okay, right, so I want to do 0, 1FR, 0, 1FR. So at a minimum, there's 0. Hello. Why you no grid? Probably the wrong one. Look at how many grids I have on this page. Woohoo! I may have made Firefox mad. It doesn't want to draw grids anymore. That's what happens with Nightly sometimes. And oh, there we go. Yay! It showed up. Okay, so this is 0. This is 0 because this is long enough that it has room for all of that. But up here, this is not that long. And so let me go back to grid here. I just had it. There we go. I'll turn that one on. This is 1FR and this is 1FR. So it centers shorter headings and allows this to line up more or less. I think I'm going to push this over slightly, push it to the left, but that's coming in a minute. But then in this case, this goes all the way out. And so an actual question is, do I want to center these titles or do I want to left align them? Because I can center them. And that, I mean, these are centered, but then if a title's too long, it's actually left aligned. And I don't know that that bothers me. It's kind of an interesting effect, because then instead of this sitting in the center, I think I'm going to stick with it the way it is. Because if I change this, let me inspect this element. Let's say I text align center. Oh, wrong element. Doesn't help to center an inline element. It doesn't do anything. All right, so that's what this looks like when it's centered. I like this better. I like the left-right alignment better. Right, so I want to push this over slightly because it does, because it's italicized. Let me get up here. I could use the home button, couldn't I? Home key. I just want to reduce this space a bit, not a huge amount, and I want to push this to the left slightly. So that is an M element, I believe. Yes, it is. That's the pub time. So text align right. Margin right. I don't know. I'm just going to go with half an M and see what happens. So that should push it over ever. Okay, that's too much. But let's go with half a CH. Half a zero width advance. That's closer to what I'm looking for, right? So in cases where the last letter is an R and it sticks out here, this doesn't feel like it's sticking out quite as far. In situations like this, it's not lining up with this M, but it looks like the slant kind of points at it a little bit, is what I'm going to say. And then in cases like this, it's just over on the right, and no one can tell if there's half a CH happening there or whatever. Yeah, I think that's right. I might move it over a slight bit more so that the O kind of points there. Let's see what happens if I do 3/4 of a CH. Yeah, that seems to, I mean, it lines up. I'm going to leave it because this looks like it lines up here and this looks like it's pointing here. I'm going to stick with it. And then if I decide later I hate it, obviously I can change it. Let's see, the header, I gave a margin bottom of 2M, and I've determined that that's too much. 1M is a little too little, so split the difference. Coolness, I think that'll do. I'm not going to fade this back. I've thought about it, but I actually want it to be more obvious. So, yeah, this is Helvetica, I think, or did I change it to something else? Oh, no, it's Open Sans. Sorry. I can never tell people, unless there's an A. I can never, and even at that, how could I tell? I know. There are probably people watching now who are horrified because how can you not tell by looking? I can't, I'm sorry. I'm not quite wired that way. Those, I don't know if you remember a few years ago, there was a quiz that was, is this Helvetica or is it Arial? And I literally got 50% accuracy. Like I could just guess and get, and I wasn't just guessing. I was like really trying to do it. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's, nope. I literally can't tell the difference between them unless they're literally next to each other. And like, then I can say, okay, I can see where the differences are. Now which one is which? That's just, some of us have face blindness and some of us have font face blindness. I have font face blindness. I know when something feels right, but I am no Jason Santa Maria. I can't just glance at a font and say, oh, that's so and so, or such and such. Because Jason is one of those people who's like that, and I love it, but it's not me. Anyway, that's me on fonts. This is looking good. I like this. I actually like this a lot. And then if we click through here, I mean, I know I got to deal with this up here. That's coming. 8 responses so far, and then it goes right into the responses. Yeah. And this isn't great, but it's not terrible. I could leave it for now. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. We set this up yesterday with Flexbox. Those of you who were here will remember that. I should do hanging punctuation everywhere. It's not really supported by much, basically Safari, and that's it. But if I did hanging punctuation, then the quote mark here should be hanging out, and the capital C would line up with the T. And I would love to see more user agents supporting that. Same thing could happen here. The T would line up with the P. And for that matter, in, not that one, here. This would also hang. And I would prefer that, but it's not. That's not a thing. So yeah, so it's time to deal with some of the structural issues that I have been ignoring all week, because I really do want to get to those. Like the fact that the body has this width and margin and padding, and I'm taking those off the body and I'm putting them on the main div, which is basically what surrounds, or the main whatever, I don't forget if it's it's a div. Clearly I forgot to quit Slack. You guys could probably hear that. Hang on a second. Let me shut that down. Right, so the main div, which I could make a section at some point, but it'll keep the ID, is going to have this. And so this will go out because this is generated content on the body. I'm redesigning it live this week. This should go out to the edges, and the footer will go out to the edges. So if I hit reload, boom. And if I go to the top of the page, right. So now the body is back to having its usual margin and padding. So once again, margin 0, padding 0, because that's what I get for not using a reset. Boom. Right. But site navigation is inside the main div, I think. Yeah, it is. It's the very first thing in main. I could move it to the masthead. That is a thing I could do. But I'm going to leave it alone for now. Because I'm going to display none it pretty soon here. Because the navigation is not going to need to be skipped to in a moment, because that's the other thing I need to fix. The navigation should not be in the footer, or it should not only be in the footer. Whether or not it should be in the footer, that's, there's any number of ways to approach that. But I'm going to, oops, wrong place. Sorry, I'm over in another window. See, here's the navigation, which is actually almost last in the footer, but because this is laid out with grid, I can move it first. But I'm taking it out. I'm putting it right above the footer for the moment. And that's going to change what happens with the footer, but that's okay. The navigation's right here in the source. So at this point, I've come down on the side of the navigation's going to, the main navigation in the source will be here in the footer, and there will be a skip to site navigation. So that somebody who's having the page read to them, or if they're printing it out for that matter, won't have the navigation markup here. It'll be in the bottom. And if they want to so they get to their content as soon as possible. But if they want to skip to it, if they realize they're, for whatever reason, if they discover they're on the wrong page, they know that there's a skip to site navigation. Let me go into one of these other ones. right? So it's down here. It's actually below this, which I kind of, that works actually when having two bits of navigation, one right after the other. This is supposed to go in a sidebar. I think I am going to end up with a sidebar for posts so that people can find feeds, and then I can also do this same thing again up here somewhere. I'm going to worry about that later. So this is the navigation, and I need to deal with that. So I'm going to, actually I can get rid of this. I can move that over. Hang on a minute, Jay, I'll get to that. So navigation is down by the footer. So footer navigate no longer exists. So I can just get rid of that rule. And I can get rid of this rule. Actually, this rule, okay. So navigate, which should be a nav element, and it will be. Actually, I could do that now, couldn't I? Since I'm basically here. Rather than being a div, this will now be a nav that will contain an unordered list that has its own ID. But navigate, I don't put that inside the curly braces, do I? Nav ID equals navigate, and then an H4, which I'm going to suppress, and then the UL. But first thing I'm going to do is display flex, not flex box, as we discovered yesterday. Yeah. Justify content center. It's so beautiful. Now, space between. I can do that to spread them all out. Okay. So navigate. So Jay asked, do I plan to implement something like OOCSS or BEM? No, I do not. I plan to use a mixture of IDs and classes as they make sense, and that's how I'm doing it. Because I don't have to manage an enormous thing. I have to manage my site, and yes, there's a lot of different content here, but the consistency, I can get enough consistency here, and I don't want that sort of. Those sorts of systems have never really worked for me. I know they work for some people, and I got nothing against them. But they've never really worked for me. I could also do space evenly. That might be nice. But let me do, once again, margin 0, padding 0. List style none. Right, so these will stretch out, and I'm going to make them bigger and more sort of visually striking. In fact, I'm probably almost certainly I'm going to change their font face. Right, but it's a real question of where am I going to put them in, or how am I going to move them to where I want them? And I think I'm using either Flexbox or Grid, and I'm just not sure. I think Flex, no. Yeah, maybe. Let me see here. There's this thing, there's this thing, there's the main div. I could use Flex. Because in this case, I'm going to be rearranging things along along a two-dimensional line. I'm going to be rearranging things vertically. I don't really need grid for that. Flex is sufficient. Flex plus order, if I want to do it that way. Well, I'm going to do it, and we'll see what happens. Because if I do a display flex direction column, I should reload the page and nothing should happen, basically. Yeah, I mean, effectively. Nothing happened. Oh, there was a little bit of a move, but not much. I think it was probably due to margin collapsing. And so I could do sitemast. Oops. Well, I could do body star order 10, and then I could do sitemast. Oops. Order 1. Navigate order 2. And that, we'll put it right below the sitemast. Yeah, and it's about time for me to make the skip links disappear. So main dots, actually let's just do dot skipper. Display none. So now I've got links across the top. I've got a big masthead that I got to deal with. Then I've got content. And then I've got this. And then I got this. And then I have a footer. And this, which would probably be a sidebar. Grid's pretty widely supported. Vitor. 70, 80%, something like that now. I'm using it in a number of places. Obviously, if it's not supported, then like this will, in this situation, if grid isn't supported, it'll end up here, and then it'll say, you know, sort of this grayed out comment received, and then Will Kessel wrote in to say, but grid's pretty well supported. But in this case, I'm not using grid because it's not widely supported. I'm using it because this is literally a two-dimensional rearrangement. If I were doing a three-dimensional rearrangement where I had like a piece is going into this sidebar and a piece is going over here and that kind of thing, then I might have thought about grid. But I'm not really doing that, or at least I'm not doing that at the body level. You know, this sidebar thing might end up at the side of posts, but that's not part of the body, or if it is, it's not going to be. But I'm pretty sure it's not. No, see, that's part of the main div. So the main div, I can think about how I'm going to arrange those things later. So yeah, so I can put this up here. And then why did I put the labels after the comment fields here? I assume you're talking about this. I think that's how WordPress did it once upon a time, but if not, I think it's because I set widths for these and I wanted them all to line up, and I didn't want them to be ragged with these things, because 12 years ago I wasn't willing to put these in table cells, and I didn't really have too many other choices. Like, display inline block wasn't even a thing at that point, and I haven't really revisited it since. I should rearrange it, and actually these, oh, they are labels. Okay, good. I was afraid that they weren't because of how old this markup is, but yeah, no, they're labels. So I could move these around, or I could put the labels on top. Is actually also a good thing. Derek Featherstone would be scowling at me if he were watching this live stream. For all I know, maybe he is. But these should probably actually be on top. Name, space, email, space, URI, or URL, or whatever website field. And then that'll actually give me more room to take this and put it over here to sort of tighten all of this up. And I could display inline block them, or I could use a simple grid if I felt like it, although that wouldn't really help me here because each of these are paragraphs. I could go back to making them a list, but each of these elements is its own thing, and so those grids can't relate to each other. Like if I said grid min content, comma, max con, or auto 1FR, whatever, so that this was over here and I put it in a min content column, then it would literally be like I hadn't done grid at all. If I had subgrid, if I could set a grid up here and say I have two columns, one's min content and the other one's whatever, 1FR min content, and then each of these is subgridded, so it looks up to it, the parent element, to say, okay, we're all gonna participate in that grid up there. Then I could do that. I could put these into a shared grid. And with excuse me, with display contents, which is a thing that I think, is it Safari's landing it now? You can sort of do that. I could say p display contents, and then the layout engine would act like this wasn't here, like this paragraph wasn't there. So it would act as though the input and the label were children of the div. So I might actually do that here just to see, because it'll be ragged in browsers that don't understand those sorts of things, but that's not many, and it wouldn't be anything that they weren't sort of used to seeing, I guess. If I wanted to put them side by side, but no, I'm actually going to do the label on top and then field, label, field, and I'm not going to grid this stuff. I've sat through Derek Featherstone's talk at an event apart this year every time, because I always pick up something new each time. That's kind of true of all the talks, but with Derek's, and one of the things he was pointing out was someone who has very low vision acuity, visual acuity, so they blow things up really wide, like this, like even further than this will go. Let's say that their experience is oh, Firefox is mad at me now, is more like this, right? That's a really bad experience. They have to like go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, especially in this case because it's I see three boxes. They're probably fields, but what are they for? I have to look over here. Now I have to come back. Now I have to look over here, right? So it's better to have these in a column. So I will do that. But I want to get back to the masthead. That is a thing that I want to finish before I'm done today. I might go a little longer than noon Eastern today. I'm not sure. But I might. But I'd like to, as much as I enjoyed making this under construction banner out of text and repeating linear gradients, I'd like to remove it by the end of today, even if I'm not completely done. It would be nice if this were to the point where someone might come down here and they might think, oh, well, this is kind of basic, but they're not, this is more of a problem. And the footer too, I want to get to the footer before I'm done. Okay, so masthead, back to the masthead. So I'm actually going to leave all those sort of together. This section is sort of the, let me change my banner. Right now. So this is, it's sort of very basic styling, sort of arrangement. I could break these apart further, but I'm not going to do that right now. I am going to, actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it site mast. Background RGBA 000.8. And then site mast H1 margin 0. And I'm going to do a min height of 10 VH. That might be too much, but let's find out. Yeah, it's not so bad. It might actually be too little. But the advantage there is that it will always be at least 10 VH, maybe go 15. And yes, I know blue on gray is terrible. I'm getting there. At least that shade of blue on gray. Right, so that lets the masthead get bigger for taller displays and shorten up for shorter displays. But it's not going to get smaller in this case than the text, which I think I'm okay with that. I think that works. I could do a V max so that it's scaled up in this situation. Maybe I should do that. Let's see how that turns out. That feels excessive. I'm going to go back to VH. I might change my mind down the road a bit. But, yeah, because if I get rid of my inspector window, it'll be that big. Maybe 20. I'm going to leave it as 15. What I have to remember is that this whole banner part is going to go away. In fact, I can make it go away temporarily. Someone who comes here will just think that that part of it broke. Let's see what 20 VH looks like. It's a big old hero image, but then it mobile sizes. It's small. And I can, I bring the text size down I could size the text by VH as well. In fact, I should do that. So, okay. So this is where I'm finally going to do the thing, and I forgot to look up his name again. I'm really sorry. I'm just going to go with white for the moment. Text tag. So I'm actually going to size this. Well, first I'm going to actually no. I'm moving this. This is not going to be on the site mast anymore. It's going to be on the A element itself after I make a display block. And here's the reason. The VH is viewport height. Like, it's related to the viewport, like the viewing area. So I can make the A display block and a min height of 20 VH, and this shouldn't really change. But now it's the A element that's controlling the height of this H1, not the H1. So this now, it all becomes clickable. It's a big 20 VH tall link. So if you click, it used to be that you would, like in the masthead, you would have to literally click on the words meyerweb.com, which would be in a corner somewhere. Not this corner, but usually here, depending on which design it was. Usually, most of them it was actually on the left side, but the one I've been using for the past few years, it was on the right, and I'm probably going to put it back there. But yeah, now this is all a great big block, and I can use flex. I could actually use flex for this instead of block. Let's see what happens there. Should be basically exactly the same deal, except I can justify content right align items flex end, not justify content right, you doofus, flex end. So I'm going to justify the content to the end of the flex, and I'm going to align the item to the end of the flex, and doink, it goes right there. I can put some margins or padding or whatever the heck I want on this, padding, I guess, not margins, to push the text up a bit, and I have a great big clickable background masthead. And, okay, so I need to deal with the sizing of this, and I'll also need to deal with the nav. Let me change that quickly. Navigate nav links. Flex wrap. Wrap, because by default it does not wrap. Yo. Okay, so now that's wrapping. That's, you know, it's tolerable. This is not great, but I'm getting there. So MyWeb.com. So H1, the H1, I could set the font size at the H1, and actually I should. H1A, I got a min height of 20 VH. And I'm going to do fonts, on the H1, I'm going to do font size, calc, and I'm going to say 1M plus 2VH. I'm totally guessing. Okay, so now that's small, and that's bigger. I might want a little bit more of the VH happening here. Oops. Okay, that's too much. This is how I figure this stuff out, generally speaking. I mean, that might also be too much. I can also do this. I don't know how many of you have tried this in the Firefox Inspector. If I go in here, I think, yeah, I can use the arrow keys, and like up and down takes the VH up and down. And if I use the shift key, it does it by tens. And I think if I use the option key, it does it by tenths. Yeah. So I might decide after I do this, okay, I like 3.5 VH. That looks good in this particular view. That's probably overdoing it. But, and the reason that I don't do that sometimes is that A, I forget that it's possible, and B, I sometimes have problems with it sort of noticing that which part I'm trying to do. And so like the other day I was trying to do it, and I kept like arrowing up and down, or like spawning new bits. It was trying to like give me new rules. Okay, so I'm going to go with 2.75 M. So that's, but in mobile it'll look like this. So it's 1 M plus 2.75% of the viewport height is what that means, because each VH is 1/100th or 1% of the viewport height. So this is going to be really close to 1 M. Inspect element, computed. Font size is now, oh, that's on the A. Sorry, on the H1 it's 30 pixels. If I blow this up, it's 6. I think that's probably resolving to smaller than that, though. 1M plus 2.75 VH. Yeah, it's got to be smaller than that. I'm going to have to file that as a bug, I think. And I could even take this to 1 rem if I felt like it. I mean, it's going to have a minimal... The difference is going to be my body is set to 1.05 M to be slightly larger, but 1 rem refers to the HTML element. If I change this to HTML, then that will become the new rem, and I believe this should get slightly larger again. Yep, it did, but then so did everything else, and I'm not going to deal with that right now. So I can do 1 rem here, but I'd rather do 1 M. I like to scale off of whatever the fonts are, not what the quote-unquote root is. Usually, not always. There are cases where I change my mind about that, Yeah, so I should put a background image on that. I'll put back the one I had. I'm going to have to go dig up exactly what that one was called. So give me just a second over here in my FTP window. Not that one. Here's my old style sheets. Is this the one that I wanted? I should have done that. Geez, now I can't remember where I set it. Man, the things you forget so very quickly. I think it was permanently set to something. Well, I know it. No, here it is. I found it. Okay, so background URL /UI/themes/that. I'm just gonna bring that in for the moment and hope that I got it correct. Oh, duh. I'm trying to import a CSS. That would have been really cool. At one point that there was discussion that would have worked, where if you brought in a CSS or an HTML sheet and set it for background, it would literally just be rendered here. I think Internet Explorer 5 did that. Yeah, so you know what? I'm going to leave that alone. I'm going to set that to that, and then up here at the top, because this has to go at the top, at import URL, and I'm going to have to go look at that style sheet and probably change it a bit. And then let me do that, and we'll be back to. All right, so. Are you looking for something I no longer provide? Or are you not there? Okay. Well, I mean, this part's working. Oh, right. Duh. Because I got rid of the themes subdirectory. Well, I didn't get rid of it. I moved it. Look, it's my custom 404 page. Yay. All right, so this is 130823. 130823. 30823, here it is. All right, so I'm going to just, for now, I'm going to get rid of that. And down here, I'm going to do this. Oops. New. And then, okay. So that image no longer exists at that location. Here it is. Okay, so it's repeating. It's centered, but it's repeating. And so I will, oops, that made that harder to read. So this is going to be that. I'm just going to go with background. Center / cover. No repeat, although that's redundant. It's mostly there. Yep. So that covers the H1 no matter how large or small it gets. So that will always be there. So that's back to the way it was, and now I need to deal with this. And the site mast is going to be font family. I'm just going to say sans serif, which which is going to make it Helvetica at this point, and that's okay. Padding, I'll just go 0. 0.5 ch, 0.1 ch0. That should move it a bit. Yep. And that's also making this bigger because I didn't do box sizing border box universally, and I'm not sure if I'm going to. Yeah, what the heck. Box sizing border box. There we go. I do still have a little bit of, I think it's for the, yeah, it's for the footer because the footer has negative margins on it left over from previously. Okay, so this is just plain old white, which is supportable, but I had it set to a different color up there. So I'm going to take that out. And now it's that color, which is not really working for me. So it has this text shadow. But honestly, oh, I think I had this set to an opacity at some point. So let me try it here. See if that's okay. That's too much. Yeah. So instead of this text shadow, I'm gonna do a thing that I do sometimes. Oops. Comma paste, comma paste, comma paste. So this is sort of like doing a text stroke outside, which SVG will permit, but and CSS currently does not. And this might be a bit much, granted. I should probably actually use whatever this color is. Excuse me. I should be able to color pick that here. Well, I would have to pick a specific pixel. 8E, 9E, AC. So 8, 9E, AC. 8E, 9E, AC. 8E, 9E, AC. Oops. So if I did that, yeah, again, it's still too much. I probably need to darken this. This is supposed to match this, and it's probably not a good choice for this particular situation. But I could, oh, here's, yeah, I am doing a 1 or a 0.75, not a 1. Yeah, that's being too subtle by half, I think. I should probably make it more match one of these. So let me use that picker again. Make that bigger now. 982220. Cool. So I can just go 982220. Get rid of that. Yeah, I'm going to stick with that for now. To me, that feels slightly overbearing at the moment, that color, but I'm good with it for the moment. It's visible. It's not too in the way. You know, I probably want to find a more, maybe I want to grab this yellow or some average of this yellow, but I'm gonna leave that for now. And that's maybe, the more I look at that, I think I just want a right padding, at least at this moment. I'm going to do it like that for now. In part, I don't want to mess with that too much because I may change that font. I am starting to think pretty seriously about web fonts for things like the titles. I'm not going to web font. I don't think I'm going to web font the entire body. But I'm or a custom font, I guess is what I should be calling this. But I may start custom fonting the titles here. I mean, this is Open Sans. I've looked at it in Helvetica. You know, Helvetica's everywhere. I'd rather have something different. But if I do that there, I'll probably use the same one or a variant on it here. And so I don't want to spend a ton of time. Like I could change this to Open Sans right now, which I believe is what I'm using for the headlines, right? So I can do that. And if it's not Open Sans, then you can fall back to Helvetica. And if you don't have either of those, fall back to, right? Like, okay, fine. And this is probably too dark as I look at this, which, yes, I know, once again, HSL would be my friend here, but I'm going to leave it as is. Okay, so other end of the page. Really got to deal with the footer before being done here. Yes, Jay, that's correct. Rem is relative to the HTML, not the body. I may have said that already, I think. But yeah, you're correct. Rem refers to the root element. So actually, if you try to use rems in an SVG element, then rem would refer to the font size of the SVG element. But in HTML, it's the HTML element because that's the root, always and forever, or at least for now. And so, yeah, I'm just going to stick it. Yeah, I don't, yeah, let's try it as white. Why not? Now that it doesn't have a white shadow around it. Yeah, that feels too much. I could use this background color. That could be an interesting punch out effect. Let me try that. Maybe that's the way to go with this. Oops. Oh, okay, I see. That's what I did wrong. Color background. Cool. Cool. Yeah, I could even take away the text shadows in that case. Yeah, maybe. Heck, in that case, I could even do a little bit of a dark shadow. I could bring those back instead of doing the blue. I could go, oops, 0, 0, 0, which this is probably too heavy, but I mean that kind of makes it pop. And again, I think that's too much. I could do 3px, 2px, and take away one of them. Yeah, kind of makes it stand out a little. And while the image is loading, like if the image for some reason fails to load, let me make it go away. H1, nope, header. Then you can still see the text, assuming that you're in a browser that understands font shadow or text shadow. I could also do filter text shadow. I could or filter or drop shadow. It would be the same kind of thing on the A, I think. Oh no, that would drop shadow the entire thing. Yeah, let's leave that as that for now. That's a good idea, Vitor. Thanks. I appreciate that. Whether or not it stays, I might darken it slightly so that it's a variant of this. Like I could do that because this is HSL. I could do that fairly easily. Like I could go 90% instead of 95 or 98%, and it becomes a variant of this, which that might be too much to be obvious. I'm gonna put it back to just be the page background. But yeah, that's kind of fun. And depending on the font, if like the font is touching the bottom of the masthead, I could, like if it's all uppercase for some reason and it's sort of sitting exactly on the bottom of this, I could take away the text shadow and it would just look like it had sort of been carved out of the bottom of it. That would be, I mean, that's an option. I'm not going to do it now, but it's an option. Okay, actually I'm going to make the navigation a bit bigger before I do the footer, but I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on it. Font, I think 1.5M, I'm going to go, once again, Open Sans, Helvetica, sans serif. Speaking of places that custom properties, otherwise known as CSS variables, would be kind of handy, That might be too much, 1.25 M. I don't want to overdo it. Yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, that might be too spread out, but I also want to make them a little bit bigger. And this is kind of the fun thing. Now that these are flex items, they kind of act like mini blocks. So, or at least they should. Let me make sure they're actually, let's see, layout. Yeah, they've got the padding. But the padding's sticking out. So I would have to do something about the height of the UL itself, or the LIs maybe. Oh, right. That was my mistake. It's actually the LIs that need the padding. But I can fake my way around it for the moment by display blocking the A elements. And then that pushes them. That's a bit much, but I can do half an M, and then 0, and then 1 M, and then they end up being, larger clickable spaces. Now, they don't get the space between them because this being a flex, and I said space evenly, like this is just dead space between each of these links. And I probably don't want to do that. If I'm going to use flex for this, and I probably am, I don't actually want to put space between them. I want them to grow so that they meet each other. And so Fitts law kicks in and all the space around the word CSS is clickable so that I don't have to exactly mouse or tap in this area. So I actually want to grab this and go with the LIs are flex. Yeah, they can grow. I think this makes them, yep, it does that. They all get to be, and they sort of auto balance. It's not 100% guarantee, but pretty much what's happening here is, okay, so let me take this back. So each of these is its own size, and all of this is the leftover space. Let me actually let me justify content to flex start, not state, which means they're all going to be left lines. So this is all the leftover space, right? And if they're not being allowed to flex right now. But if they're allowed to flex, if the list items are allowed to flex, then all of this space gets divided up and applied evenly to each of these. So if I say that they can, have a flex, they can grow, they can shrink, and they should be automatically sized, then, I could actually even say they're allowed to grow and they're not allowed to shrink, because I don't want them to be any smaller than this. They're all allowed to grow, but they all grow at the same rate, not the same proportional rate, but at the same objective rate. So if one of them gets an extra pixel of increase in its size, they all get a pixel. So by doing that, they all stretch out. So all this is the about this site. This is leftovers, speaking, writing, toolbox, etc. And then I can just text align center, because where the text sits in the box doesn't matter. And then, boom, you've got that. I can turn off these little boxes here. So this is all archives. And then at some point it switches to CSS. So I'm going to need to have some kind of visible indication whether I do a hover. I could just do that quickly, since that's easy enough to do. HSL A. I'll go 180, 50%, 50%, 0.5. And so when I hover, it does that, which I'm going to pretend that that's a call back to the blue here, and we're just going to move on with life after I detone it slightly. Okay, so there you go. So now you can tell, at least in a mouse, which one is which. Later on, I could put separator lines between them, like that would be super easy to do, or I could do some sort of bottom thing. I actually think I'm probably going to do some variant on this separator. It's everywhere else. I may as well use it here to separate the navigation from the rest of the content. But I think this works for now. And if I want to squeeze this in a little bit, if I don't want these going all the way out to the edge, all I have to do is on the nav links, just set some padding. Right, like I can do padding 0, comma, oh, calc, yeah, no. I don't know, 10 VW, which is 10% the width of the, so if I click the flex, right, so this is the padding and this is the padding, and this is where this gets to go. And there are a lot of other ways that I can approach this, but that's one of the things that makes flex so nice. It's not great in this situation because now I've still got that and I don't want that, but and this isn't super great either. That's responsive is a thing that I'm going to have to deal with soon, obviously. Okay, so the footer. The footer, everything is thrown all over the place, and that's got to get dealt with. Right now, because I yanked Navigate out, and Navigate used to be a part of its grid structure, everything's just flowing in normally. And let's see here. There it is. Let me go up. And nope, I'm not going there. I'm going here. Opening up the page end, which has all the footer stuff. And the navigation, which lives at the end of the page. At the end of the structure, I should say. Right, so there's this, there's the excuse of the day. I actually think this and this should go together structurally. And the excuse of the day actually needs to come sooner. And yes, I have a PHP include and a server-side include, because if it's a PHP page, it needs this, that's calling this file, it needs this, and if it's an HTML page that's calling this file, it needs this. And that's just how I roll. So I can move up the extras as well. And this is, right now, this is all about structure. This is not about what goes where visually. This is like, here's where to find me, and here are the projects. And I might actually flip these two in the source. And then here's some extra things. And then the excuse of the day, and I was a freight contributor, and I've got this thing. And then there's some legalese type stuff. And a legalese and a credit. And I'm using grid right now because it's easy to set things where I want them using grid. And then once I'm done laying it out, I can decide if I still want to use grid or if I want to redo the layout with something else. So I feel like these should go across the bottom of the footer, both of these. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to change the way I do the columns. And basically, or am I going to change the way I do the rows? I'm going to change the way I do the rows. They're mostly going to be min content, but there's going to be top line, min content, midline, min content, legal, min content, credits, min content. Okay, so what I did there was I set 4 grid lines. And they are named. Oh, and I need to get rid of the negative margins because that's messing things up. Okay. So there's the alarm that says I got 20 minutes to go until noon. So the margin is 4M00. Okay. But these are all being flowed. But so here's the reason that I did it like this. Now I can, inside the footer, I can do things like say the paragraph class equals Sosumi, p.Sosumi, grid row, legal, grid column 1/-1, and that will now go all the way across here. That is taking up that entire row track. And then I can do the same thing with the credits. In this case, it's a last child. I need to, credits, not credit. I actually need to give it its own thing. It doesn't have a class or an ID or anything. Okay, so if I turn off the footer grid, I've got these guys going. Now, the reason these are so far separated is that the paragraph margins are, participating in the sizing of the grid track. So I could get rid of those. I could just do a footer. Oops, no, it's not an ID anymore. Footer P, margin 0. Right. Let me take away the grid lines for a moment. Right, so then I can center them, I can whatever. And these now are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's just 2 empty grid cells. And I could do the same thing with the columns. I could do like a start, middle, end, or whatever. But I wanted to do top line, midline, because now I can do things like I can say to myself, okay, I want these things in the top line and I want these things in the midline. And it becomes really easy to just move these things around. And so I'm going to and the H4s on these things also need to get themselves under control. I could do that now, actually. Footer H4, font size 1.5M, margin 0. And I'll bring things up. Yeah, I'll leave that on for now. Let me just lighten this up so that it's easier to see what's going on. There we go. Yeah, and one of the things the Firefox Grid Inspector doesn't do yet, but I know they're talking about it, is putting in the actual the names of the lines, so that here it would not only have the numbers, which we can't really see because they're going off screen. Let me bring that in a bit. Where's my footer? Padding is 1M. I'm going to make it 1M 10 VW for the moment. It might stay that way, but that's what I'm going to leave it for the moment. Right, okay, so these are a lot easier to see. So here are my negative grid lines and here are my positive grid lines. And eventually, somewhere, I don't know if it's going to be in the tag or there's going to be like a box like over the line or whatever, it should say, top line, midline, etc. The problem is that I can have this be top line, start, top, beginning, and literally refer to any of those. Right? You can have multiple names. So in a situation like, in a situation like that, like literally I'm going to save it, and nothing should break because, why would it? But how are you going to show that? how are you going to show that and not like completely obscure all of the content? And maybe obscuring the content is the thing to do, but that's a thing. I've been talking with the Firefox team, at least members of them, who are working on this. Sometimes they say, what should we do here? I can give my opinion, and sometimes there's I think a number of people they talk to, and sometimes they take our opinions, and sometimes they don't. But Yeah, hopefully that'll be in there. What this will do, I don't have anything to show it at the moment. It'll show area names. If you have named areas in your grid, it will show them it'll like label each cell. Like if this were all a credits area down here, it would say like credits, 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 credits. Okay, so I have 3 things. I really only need 3 lines, I feel like. And those H4s are too big. That might be too small, but whatever. I kind of feel like these 2 things should be together. I can literally put them over top of each other in the same cell, but then they would literally be overrunning each other. Although on the other hand, where do I really want these things? All right, I'm actually going to bump this up a lot. And these are all being auto-flowed, so it's going to look weird for a second. But yeah, I can take this up to 8 columns, and because I said that these went from 1 to -1, they always span their row tracks here. Because visually, and you can see here 2 and 3 are stacked on top of each other. So that means midline and legal are actually stacked on top of each other at the moment. Because there's no space between midline and legal. There's no content, so the row track becomes 0 height. Because I haven't sized it. I said min content. If I wanted, I could do a min max 1m comma min content. Shoot. There, and now it's at least 1m tall. Yeah, see, the question is where should things go? And that's hard to know. All right, here's what I'm going to do. Extras. Where's extras? Is an ID of extras. That's super convenient. Actually, let me move this so that that's over there. Extras. Oops. Extras. Grid column 1 and grid row mid line. I could also say grid row 2 there. Okay, so that's going to be there. And I'm going to have what's elsewhere? Pointers. I'm going to have footer pointers. All right, got about 9, 10, 11 minutes to go. It's going to be grid row 1 span 2, grid column 2. And so that means that projects elsewhere will be this big, but the identity archipelago and extras will be like this. Okay, so I can bring down the number of columns to, let's say, 4. And now these guys sort of they stack on top of each other. This appears here and it takes up this space, all of this space. And then I could put these into a column together, these 2 things. And then Or I could put all three of these into a single column. I'll need another row, but that's okay. And then this can span, because I probably want to update this a bit. I've done some other projects I'd like to point at. I'm going to do... take that back down. Most of my rows I want to be either min content or auto, and I suppose I could do just auto. There are subtle differences between the two, but in most cases there really isn't that much. So midline, secondary, I don't know, why not? Auto. So I do that, and then that should, right, so these are auto-distributing themselves into various bits, but I actually want a one span three here. So that should close this up. So the archipelago, the identity bit goes there. Pointer spans that whole thing. Extras goes there. That goes there. That goes there. And the excuse of the day. Sorry, the advisory goes there. But I can have the archipelago. What do I call it? Archipelago. Good for me. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce that, by the way. I could be wrong, though. I've heard people say archipelago, but I feel like archipelago sounds more correct. I'm going to do something similar to this, except it's going to be span 2, grid column 1. Oops, what did I do wrong? I'm sure I did something wrong. Well, so did I spell it right? All right, yes, archipelago is grid row 1 span 2, grid column 1. Pointers is 1 span 3, column 2. So the archipelago is not spanning 3 rows, or is it? Oh, it's because I forced extras to be on the midline. I actually want it to be on the secondary. These are the things that can mess you up with grid. Okay, so now I've got 3 rows. This spans 2 of them. This spans 3 of the rows. Extras is in its own row. And then these are 1, 2, 3. And that's... Is that how I want this? Or do I actually still want a 4th column and I could put the advisory next to the excuse of the day and the freight contributor? I think I want to do that. So I can do... Oh, that's weird. Why did I do that? Advisory grid column 4 should be enough. But I may have forgotten something. Yeah, I did. Grid row 1. It doesn't matter what order you put grid row and grid column in, by the way. I tend to do it this way. And then I can do grid row 1 span 3. And now that's how I have them arranged. And I can do things like the advisory can be align self-center. And in browsers that understand that, it will be centered in this space. And in browsers that don't understand that, it'll just be at the top. I mean, I probably don't want to do that in this situation but it's easy enough to do. Now that I've done it, I can see that I don't really like it. So here, I've made it so that these things kind of distribute themselves. Again, this should be centered. I just haven't done that yet. I could suppress this H4 visually if I wanted to. I mean, it works for now. And then if I decide to expand this list, I can take extras and move it over and rearrange things a little bit. And then if there's no grid, I just take that away. Then it's it's like this, and I could throw in inline block fallbacks or something, so that it wouldn't be exactly what I have, what I end up with here, but it'd be closer. This is one of the reasons I love grids so much right now, because it makes prototyping so flippin' easy. I was able to throw these around and maybe get to where I want to be. I mean, this is the excuse of the day bit is probably going to be styled into a box that maybe will match this. And maybe I'll take a edge. That's the issue I contributed to. It's been a long time since that came out. But it's still available. I mean, I don't get royalties or anything, but it's still available. So maybe I'll keep it up there. Maybe I'll start doing more of those sorts of things where I can say, hey, I have a piece in Fray. I had a piece in Slate a couple years ago. I could put it in the footer for people who are interested, or I could not. I could start taking that stuff out. And if I took this out and I put the advisory underneath it, right, then the grid makes it really easy to just rearrange where everything goes. But I think right now, this is what I'm going to do for the footer arrangement. And then I can go back and I can worry about that kind of stuff. But I'm to the point where I feel like I can take this site under construction off. I'm not going to completely delete it because I might decide that I want to put it back for whatever reason. But, right, the masthead comes up because this is bigger now. I can click into CSS. This is one of my static HTML, or mostly static HTML sites, which is, this is basically what it looked like before. These were probably bold-faced, and I'll probably come back and do that. This is not significantly different. It's out of date, but it's not significantly different presentation-wise. This could use a little cleanup, but not a ton. This isn't bad. It's certainly readable. Tim Berners-Lee would recognize it as a web page. So, I think the only thing is that this is off a bit, and I need to look at why. The grid is... Oh, it's because everything's left aligned, of course. I didn't try to center it all. So the grid itself is centered, but everything is against the left side of their cells. And I can center them. I can block center them in effect by, where did I put my footer stuff? I need to start commenting my style sheet for the future so that I don't get lost in it. But I could do a justify content. I think that works. So everything sort of smooshes up into the center, but that might not work yet. No, okay, it doesn't. It's supposed to, but it doesn't yet. But for each of the, you know what? I'm not going to mess with it. For each of the footers, children, I could say, footer, child, star, display, flex direction, column, and then align items, center, and then each of those blocks sort of would be centered within their grid cell, but I don't really want to do that right now. I'm okay with it being a little bit left biased. It's right for the moment. It's I'll deal with that. Oh yeah, and then the about this site page, which doesn't actually exist at the moment. I can't remember. I'll have to put that back. But you know, about this site leading to a 404, I feel like there's a meta commentary there. But yeah, now I can just click on the heading, on the masthead, and get wherever. And yeah, I mean, I need to deal with this. I need to deal with this at small sizes. But this works out, and the footer's probably going to be a nightmare as well, would be my guess. Yeah, it's not great. Yeah, the outdented bullets do need to go away. That's true, Peter. I can fix that, though. Again, list style, not lust style, list style none. And that's interesting that that's all jammed up. Show me the footer. Oh, because I ran out of rows. I ran out of cells. Because there's so many things spanning at this size. These are actually auto columns, but 1/-1 doesn't. It only deals with the explicit grid. It doesn't go out this far. But you know, obviously I need something better here than what I'm doing, whether or not I use autofit or something else, or autofill or one of those others. But yeah, I have to deal with the mastheads as well. It has to be responsive, and it's not at the moment, because of because I've been doing it at this size, and I'm going to take it down. Excuse me. My voice seems to be getting a bit ragged. I'm willing to keep this going if anyone wants to hang around. I know it's been 2 hours, but I'm just going to do a few more things before I have to go get my own lunch. Although I purposely made myself a sizable breakfast in order to not have you all hear my stomach growling over the stream, because when I get sufficiently hungry, it is that audible. Because I'd like to do something about this, and I'm going to do something about link colors. I'm not going to change them too much, but so yeah, I'm going to do that and deal with the navigation there, and then the sidebar stuff in posts like this, and having this kind of stuff available closer to the top. And actually, I'm going to space that out right now. Any UL in here actually has a margin of 0.001M. I'm going to make those margins for the moment. Yeah, so that'll push things apart a little bit. That's actually much better. And these should both be center. And these are getting enough similarities. I'm wondering if I should just roll them into their own div. I think a div equals something, and then have the paragraphs. But yeah, so that's. But I'm gonna deal with that anyway. Like I say, if you want to stick around, great. I'll keep this going for a little bit longer, but probably not hugely long, because like I say, I will want to eat. And now that I've mentioned lunch, I'm gonna want to do that soonish. But okay, so. Navigate. Need to find one of my little linear gradients, because I'm dropping one of these on the navigate as well. To right. part of that out. Oh no, that's the wrong gradient. Whoops. Those are the pre's. Yeah, here we go. That's what I want. The text is so big I got lost. Anyone else ever have that problem? So that's background, linear gradient, yada, yada, yada. Center bottom is actually what I'm after. Yeah, something like that, except maybe not so small. Ooh, I could have it mirror this width, which if I remember correctly is 100 ch. No, it's 80. I changed it. So I could say, oops, 890%. That would be awesome. 80 ch, and that will basically stick to main width. Did I say? Yeah, I said max width 80 ch. It'll be larger than that here, but that's, I mean, at mobile sizes, I'm okay with that. But at desktop sizes, and then yeah, it'll get larger as you get below 80 characters. But I'm okay with that. I can live with that. The only difference would be if I decided to constrain these to the actual width of the, I'm going to stop that now, the actual width of the, if I decided to constrain the actual nav link arrangement to the width of this, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I may push these in a bit, but I'm not going to make that. I don't think I'm going to make that like that. Unless I decide to go with some other way of, like, when you're on the toolbox, indicating when you're on the toolbox page that you're on the toolbox page. Right now you can't really tell when you're on one of these sub pages. And if I have all the hooks in place to do that, it's just a question of whether or not I actually go and do it. No, I think I can leave those for now. And the only other way I would want to do this differently, the navigation, and I think I might want to do this, is for the nav links. I'm curious what happens. Justify content. I mean, I think I know what happens, but like I said yesterday, Flexbox sometimes surprises me. I don't quite have my head all the way around it. Yeah. See, these are all getting bigger, and now they're centered instead of not being centered. But they're all growing to their maximum amount. Because see, my other possibility would be to have them all not grow, but give them a baseline of, I don't know, 15%. Oh, that actually made them bigger. Cool. What if I said 0? They're only allowed to grow. Same thing. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, see, this is where I get confused and I get lost with Flexbox, because the flex basis, like I've read Estelle's definition of it. I edited that part of the text. I've written my own explanations of what flex basis is, and it's still, I don't quite have it internalized. Which, I mean, sometimes there are concepts in CSS that are like that. It took me 2 weeks to like get the inline layout model, like the way that lines of text are constructed. It took 2 weeks to finally get it. And so I haven't done that kind of dedicated, like focused effort of trying to figure out flex basis, and I really should. I just haven't yet. But yeah, this works. I think I like it. I think I'm gonna fade it out more. So I'm gonna take this down to. I could even take it to 0, but that might be. Yeah, I like it more like that. And I'll actually even take down the middle a bit. You can't really tell that much, but it makes it a little more subtle. Or I could do that, bump it up, and then take all of this down, like make it taller. But no, I'm going to stick with the 1 pixel for now. It's interesting how visually similar those two things can be. I mean, yeah, we're staring at this, and so we can see that it got shorter. But did you notice that it went from 33% opaque to 50% opaque when it went from 2 to 1? Visually, they looked to me very similar. Yeah, and I wonder if I should also make these a little bit more subtle, but no, I'm not going to mess with that for now. I think this is good, or maybe rather than 80 ch, I'll take it up a bit, take it past slightly to like 90 ch, so it's a little bit wider, but it's not necessarily the entire. I mean, the thing is with this, I don't really. I could calc this, I guess, but I don't really want to. I like the calc sizing of this. Like that works for me. I like all of this. I dig that happens. So if you happen to be looking at this on a tablet, like in this orientation, right? This is not 300 pixels tall or whatever. It's 20%, I believe we set it at, or I set it at. Yeah, 20% the display height, and then if you change it, it's still 20% of the display height. Like that, I dig that. I might fade it back a bit. I might take it to 17.5% or something. And with contain, this all works out fine. I used to have a different masthead every day with a different color set. I don't know if I'm ready to go back to that yet, but I may at some point. If I do that, I'm going to have to revisit, because basically it was like this the tiny. You saw the PHP script briefly earlier. It's this PHP script that would pick a random number with a random generator seeded by whatever today's date was, or whatever the today's date was in milliseconds. Like midnight today in milliseconds would be the seed for the random number generator, and then it would. So every day it would be a new random, whatever the first random number was between 1 and however many themes there were. It would pick the same one for everybody that day, and then the next day it would pick a different one. But it would pick a little style sheet that would load in the image, but it would also set the font color. And I would have to do some local testing to make sure none of that became eye-wateringly terrible. I mean, hopefully it wouldn't, but I did those at a different time. This footer is boring me now. Not the way that the grid's laid out, but linear gradients are apparently my thing for this design. I'm bringing them back, folks. To bottom. Nope. Wait, what did I have in there? There it is. So I can take this. Yes, I know that's not a property. I have to move it to the background. 0.2 comma. Let's see if that's too much. It probably is. Yeah, see, there we go. Hey, wait a minute. Oh, P last child. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna have to fix that. But for the moment, it'll live. That's not terrible. But I'm okay now that I've done that. Where's my page background? We're going to vary the footer colors off of that. So HSL. Yeah, all right, I'll just stick with that. Ooh, what if I went transparent? What? No completions? All right, I gotta fix that. 95 and 80%. I know that's a different color, but let's just see what that looks like. Come on, save yourselves. Thank you. No, that didn't work at all. Well, I mean, it sort of did. Yeah, but I need less of this. I mean, it is a different color. Ooh, that's not bad. It's kind of warm. I could actually do an HSLA here. And I could do the same thing here. See how that looks. Yeah, no, that's too much. Yeah, it was better the way it was. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. You may not be able to see all that. Sorry. Let me bring that up. I'm kind of liking that in general as a nice little gradient. I wonder what happens if I darken it up further and desaturate it further. Too much. Okay. So, yeah, I'll take it to there. I suppose I could try 85% and see how that is now. What if I just did 70%, 90%? Yeah, I'm going to stick with that. 70%, 90%. Why not? And then, yeah, I'm going to leave that. I'm going to leave the footer alone. It's good for the moment. It's not done. It's not perfect, but it's good. Yeah, shoot. What did I do to this? Is this another P last child? It totally is. Oh, because I didn't constrain it to the footer. Yeah, that was stupid. I was every last child paragraph in the, yeah, oops. Okay. Fix that. We've still got this for the cross-connected faceplates, but that's okay. I'm just gonna leave that for the moment. Changing that back into a box later will be no big thing. But I want to deal with this area and this, because we did talk about this earlier. So I got to go back to my FTP window that you can't see, because I can't show you all my secrets. Sorry, it's just a thing. Okay, comments. Oh, I was a little too close to the mic there. My apologies. Right, so here's all of this stuff. And I've got type equals hidden in here for some reason. Oh, right. It's doing it's doing stripping. Come on. Okay, so where's Firefox? There we go. So if I reload that, then that all went. I forgot to move this label. So that goes. Hello. 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 Oh, I didn't move it far enough. That was my problem. Right. So this is what I was trying to avoid originally. Was this sort of raggedness? You know, it's no tragedy, certainly, but that is what I was originally trying to avoid. So let me minimize that out of the way. And zoop. Okay, so comments, and then comments. Did I put these in a field set? No, I didn't. That markup, once again, probably predates field sets. But if I have a field set, it'll probably be called fields. So comment form fields label display block. So it'll be this kind of a deal. Yeah, tables, whatever. Now remember, I'm going columnar. There'll be display block. There'll be font weight, bold, and I will make these bigger. They are not logos, but I will still make them bigger. They don't have a size set. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So for that same thing, label with an input of text, because oh no, some of them are emails. All right, anything with a label that has or an input that has a type. Input width. Right, and here's that thing where CH doesn't actually mean characters unless I want to try to force these to be monospace fonts, but browsers can get upset about that. So 35 CH. Let's see if I massively overspec that. No, that's good. I'm going to go to 40, which, right, like in fairness, is probably not going to be 40. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oop, 9, 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0. Why am I typing this one? I could copy and paste. Right, so this is actually slightly more in this situation than 40 characters. Whereas if I had 40 zeros, that's, right, 40 characters. Well, it's 40 zeros. It's 40 zero characters. 40 zero with advance. Actually, ever so slightly less, but that would have more to do with form styling than. So it's really close. But if I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, copy, 1, 2, 3, right? Like that's more than, this is less than that. Anyway, but I think that's a decent size. I want to deal with these guys. So let me look at that. So post comment, form ID header. So I have this header is actually inside the form. That doesn't need to be there. Oops. Oh, Legacy Max CR. That's awesome. Now you know now you can get an idea of how long ago it's been since I edited this file. It was using carriage returns instead of Unix line feeds. Where did I put that header? Here it is. So this should actually go outside the form in my opinion. That shouldn't change anything for the moment visually. But we have div ID post comment. You have to be logged. Did I not move it up far enough? I don't know if I moved it up far enough. Let's see. Inspect element. Header. Nope, it's in the right place. Yeah, so I've got a header with h3 leave a comment, and then this bit, and then there's an actual form that has the actual form. I don't know, should the header go in there? Maybe it should. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the form should have its own h3. It's not going to really hurt it either way. Ouch. So, okay. This is a header. I want these things to go next to each other. So comments, actually this is handy now that I look at this, because I can do comments, comment form, header, display, flex, and then those should go next to each other. They do. And then I can take, here's the header, here's the h3. Right, and the h3 has a margin, and I want to push these apart. There's only two of them, so justify content space between, and I want the h3 to not have a margin at the moment. So that should take this and throw it over here, and this should have no margin, and that's more or less what I'm after, except I'm going to align items center so they will be vertically centered with respect to each other. Or for that matter, I could do align items flex end, and now they'll be bottom aligned, but this guy's margin is pushing it up, and this one doesn't have a margin anymore. So I could actually do, oops, star margin 0, right? And now these are bottom aligned. So if this ever gets extra links, it actually grows upwards. Or the top will stay here and it'll grow downwards, but this will follow it. So I could actually simulate that. I'm just gonna do, oops, 2 more of these. And then if I load this, zoop, zoop. Align items, flex end. You probably can't see that, it's probably off screen. Sorry, I keep forgetting. Come on. There we go. Right, so align items, flex end. And then I'm going to, I don't want this to be this jammed up, so comment form is going to have a top margin. So padding top 1.5 m, margin top same, which will push them down from the last comment. That's probably a little too much. Right, so you get to the last comment and then leave a comment. This, I'm going to make this look a lot like this. These two guys are going to look a lot like this. And then these, and then Peter, you suggested I float this over. I will not be floating for layout. Thank you very much. Because we've got a fields and then we've got a form info. And I'm probably going to flex these as well. I could grid them, but again, like this is, I could try to put all these into the same thing, and then it would be a grid because I would be doing a 2x2, but this is really a 1x1 and this is a 1x1, and I don't necessarily want them to relate to each other. Like I don't want the width of this to somehow be tied to the width of this. They need to be their own things. The downside here being that these are siblings of the header. So I either need to wrap them in a field set, which is not a bad idea, or I am going to have to do wacky things with either flex or grid, and I'm going to wrap them in a field set. and I hope I'm not doing something super wrong in that situation. No, your comment is different. And this is going to be in HR. I'm going to add a class of fallback. So that will not show up in modern browsers. Now my field set, there it is. It's got a border, which I could turn off if I felt like it. I probably will. Although, no. No, yeah, no. It should go there. It should not go there, I mean. This should go elsewhere. This should go to here, I think. But now I've just let myself in for more trouble. All right, grid it is. I'm not going to flex this after all. This should be interesting. I have literally never tried to grid a field set. I have no idea why it should be a problem, but field set, display grid. Let's just, I need grid template columns. Well, no, yeah, I do. Grid template columns. I think max content 1FR. That should, it's going to look, yep, that's, so max content, it is now as large as it needs to be for the maximum size for its content. Min content might have given me the same result in this situation, but and then there is a paragraph here, but I don't. It's more of a section, really, I think. So this will go here, and then it will go here. Section grid column 1/-1. Boink. There you go. And then what I can do with these guys is there's an ID of form info. Field set. So I can do it like this. It's like margin, or sorry, margin left. I could do that, but which pushes each apart a little bit. And yes, I can move this down a slight bit, but I think what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to grid gap. Grid gap 1M, 2M, and I believe that's 1M between rows and 2M's between columns. I believe. Let me turn on the grid. Hello. I may not be able to turn this on right now. Yeah, Firefox has done that thing where it doesn't want to. Well, Firefox Nightly specifically. Let's be honest. Firefox Nightly sometimes gets annoyed about showing grids. In this case, I think it just doesn't want to show it on the field set. So apparently, I have a bugged file. Yeah, I could pin that to the bottom. I could pin the info to the bottom. That's true. At least it's theoretically true. Comment. Oops. All right. I believe it was form info. Jeez. All right. I am starting to not be able to type, so it's probably good that this is ending soon anyway. Yep. Form info. Align self. Should be align self end. Yeah, and so that does that. And I could tighten up the line height like that if I wanted. That might be a bit much. It might be a little too crowded given everything else. But yeah, so this sort of aligns with here. Does that paragraph still have yeah, it still has margins. But then so do the things that enclose these paragraphs. So this is basically lining up. Yeah, so the form info is actually inside the field set, so I should move that down. And then the field set, border, none. Let me see what happens. Goes away. Yeah, and I think it has some padding built in, so I could get rid of that as well. Yeah. Leave a comment, and then I can make those, let's make those be less of a thing. RSSTB. Font style italic, opacity 0.5, and like that. Yeah, or I could have it stick down again, maybe a little bit, although that would then argue for me trying to grid everything here and doing a bit where like this spans a couple of columns and this spans a couple of columns and this one and this one and this one don't, which is doable. But I'm not going to do it. At least not right now. Yeah, this all works. This is now that I've done this, this is a little weird. If this were up more, it would still be weird, but differently. But I kind of like this. I'm probably gonna cheat these together anyway. Yeah, you think the text should be aligned here, and I don't necessarily disagree. That's gonna be harder to pull off. I mean, I can do it with the way that we usually do these things with margins. But if I do fields now, actually I want fields. I want this one. What the heck just happened? There we go. Fields P margin bottom 0.5 M, I think. And that should have these. Did I get it wrong? Field set, fields. Oh, they have to be margin 0.5 M in general. And those will come closer together. And then, yeah, if I want that one to be top aligned, and its self-alignment is probably now getting janked a bit by that. Let me bring this out. Margin top 1.75 M. Oops, not 0.175 M, 1.75 M. And that's going to be, yeah, it's not quite right. It can maybe be like that. I mean, that's roughly accurate. And then, I mean, at lower sizes, it'll do that, but I'm going to have to deal with that anyway. You know, to some degree, I think I'm going to disagree with this. I think it actually should be bottom because, you know, let's say this happens. There's this big gap here. And yes, I can, you know, use media breakpoints to deal with that, but I'm feeling like, oh, we can turn you off. You gonna work? No. That's a thing for me to report, definitely. I feel like this should be bottom line so that these stay close to these guys stay close to this. So I'm going to take it back. This is actually going to end up being a margin bottom. Actually, I don't have to change the margin at all, do I? Except what I need is I have to make the top auto margin, and I might actually margin top auto. Does that work for me? It does not, unless I align self. Align self end, I think. Or do I have to do them? I have to do them both as align self end, don't I? Yeah, still getting used to this, folks. Still getting used to how all this stuff works. You need to be bigger. That's the form info, and that's the fields. So I think the fields also have to have an auto margin top. I think this will work. Fingers crossed. Yes, it did. Yep. So I don't even think I need the align self end. Yeah, and I took it out. So these two are going to bottom align. I have to do something about the margins and all. Like that margin's pushing it up, whereas these guys have small margins. Margin, I'll just make it margin auto 0.5M. And then that should bring those together, but basically I could mess with it some more so that we get that. And then the question is, am I okay with this separation? And I think I am, because at lower breakpoints, I'm going to change how this is done anyway. I'll probably actually have this part come first so that this all stays together rather than name, email, URL. No, that's not true. I actually want this to go down here because that will go, this really belongs to this. Most people don't use the markup. To some extent, I'm not even sure why I keep that there, but yeah, just in case. People do occasionally use this markup. Okay, yeah, I think that's where that's ending up. And who knows, maybe I'll change this all at some other time. But name, email, URI. Your comment, I could stand to make this the full width of whatever's going on rather than be whatever that is. And it's probably got a built-in rule of some sort. Maybe not. Maybe it's coming off of the rows and columns markup. Do I have, yeah, column 70. I wonder if that ends up being 70ch. But I could take that out and override that and make it be large. in which case I could have this attached to this and I could put this here. Yeah, there's a lot of things I could do. I'm not going to do them all now, though. It's been 2 3/4 hours. I think that's probably sufficient. Like I said earlier, this might be the last time I live stream this, because from here on out, it's going to be a lot of fiddly, similar details, and also me looking at web fonts from like Google and typography.com and stuff like that to see, if there's one I want to use. And I don't think anyone wants to sit and watch me scroll through font collections and not choose hardly any of them. So, yeah. Thanks for dropping in. I mean, for those of you who either were doing it live and in the chat, and if I missed any questions, I apologize. Ping me on Twitter if you had a question that I didn't see, or you can send me email. That's fine too. Or you could join the New Year Slack channel, Slack team, and talk about stuff in there. If you're going to do New Year, the Newwwyear in the New Year, that Slack team's still there. Jen Simmons has links to it. But yeah, I mean, I might stream again next week, but I kind of doubt it. This has been fun. It's been interesting, but and I appreciate everyone who came in. I'm glad that people enjoyed it, and people who come in later, who are watching this in the archive. Thanks for watching. For the rest of you all, all I can say is thanks. I mean, thanks. It's been really it's been fun. It's been a fun experiment, and it's been interesting to do and have the interaction. So anyway, I hope all of you have a happy arbitrary Gregorian boundary condition, and otherwise known as Happy New Year. And I hope 2018 looks better for everyone than 2017 did. Even if 2017 for you turned out to be awesome, I hope 2018 is better. And I'll see you all around the net.